The gavel
Order in the
slammed,
court.
and the whole courtroom went dead quiet. Patrice Hawthorne stood up first, dressed in white like she was innocent, voice loud like she owned the truth. "Your Honor, our daughter is dead. Those children belong with us. That man is nothing but a poor mistake." Gideon Hawthorne pointed straight at Caleb Monroe.
He married our daughter for money. Now he wants our mansion, our name, our empire.
Caleb didn't shout. He didn't beg. He just held his 3 triplet daughters tighter, Ayla, Aria, and Amaya, because he could feel the danger in the air. Then Judge Simone Bradshaw leaned forward, eyes sharp.
Girls, I need to hear from you. Who takes care of you?
Ayla stood up first, small but brave.
My dad, he wakes us up, he makes breakfast, he packs our lunches, he never forgets even when he looks tired.
Aria stood up next, and her voice shook, but she kept going.
My dad is the best dad in the whole world. He sings the wrong one sometimes, but he sings anyway because he wants us to feel safe.
Then Amaya stood, calm, serious, watching everyone like she could see through lies.
When Mommy was alive, Mommy helped with money. But Daddy did the home, Daddy did the love, Daddy did the work you don't clap for.
The courtroom stopped breathing. Even Patrice's face froze. Judge Bradshaw's eyes filled, just a little, like she was fighting it. "And you feel safe with your father?" the judge asked. All 3 girls answered at the same time, loud and clear. "Yes." Ayla stepped closer to Caleb and added one more thing that hit everybody hard. "Please don't send us away. Our dad is our home." Judge Bradshaw's lips trembled. A tear finally slipped, then another. She wiped her face fast, tried to stay professional, then looked at Patrice and Gideon like they disgusted her. And when the judge spoke again, her voice was firm, but her eyes were wet, because she had heard the truth from the only people who couldn't be bought. Brielle Hawthorne was the kind of woman people stared at without meaning to. She was 30, Black American, and she carried herself like someone who had been raised around money her whole life. Her family name opened doors. Her smile closed deals. In Atlanta, people whispered Hawthorne like it was a password. But Brielle's heart did not live in boardrooms. Her heart lived at home. And at home, her husband Caleb Monroe was the center of everything. Caleb was not rich. He was not flashy. He was the kind of man who fixed things quietly and loved loudly without showing off. He was the kind of man who woke up early, made breakfast, and still found time to braid 3 little heads before school. And those 3 heads belonged to their triplet daughters, Ayla, Aria, and Amaya, 3 10-year-old girls with quick mouths, quick minds, and big personalities. Ayla was the one who asked why 100 times a day. Aria was the one who made jokes at the worst times and still got away with it. Amaya was the one who watched everything and always knew when adults were lying. That evening, the mansion was too quiet. The lights were bright, but the air felt heavy. The kind of heavy that sits on a person's chest without permission. Caleb stood in the kitchen, rinsing dishes that didn't need rinsing. Brielle sat at the dining table, staring at her hands like her hands were holding a secret. And they were. Caleb finally turned. "Brielle, you've been quiet all day. Talk to me." Brielle swallowed. Her eyes shined, but she forced her voice to stay steady. "Caleb, my love, I have to tell you something." Caleb stepped closer. "What is it?" Brielle reached for him like she needed to feel something real. She squeezed his fingers hard. "Please promise me something first." Caleb frowned. "Brielle, don't do that. Don't scare me." She nodded slowly. "Promise me you will take care of our girls if anything happens." Caleb's throat tightened. "Why would you even say that?" Brielle's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because I have leukemia." The words sat in the room like a thunderclap. Caleb blinked once, twice, like his brain refused to accept it. No, that can't be right." Brielle shook her head. Her tears finally slipped. The doctors said, "I have 3 months." Caleb stumbled back like he'd been pushed. 3 months? He repeated, like repeating it could make it smaller. Brielle, you're fine. You're right here. Brielle let out a shaky breath. I wanted to pretend too, but I can't lie to you. Caleb's eyes reddened. We'll fight it. We'll go everywhere. The best hospitals. The best... Brielle cut in softly. Caleb, listen. I'm not giving up, but I need you to be strong. For them. Caleb's voice cracked. I don't know how to do this without you. Brielle held his face. You do. Because you've always been the home, Caleb. You've always been the home. And just like that, a small voice floated from the hallway. Mum, why are you talking like a movie narrator? It was Arya. Of course it was Arya. Then Ayla stepped in behind her. Is somebody in trouble? Because I heard the word promise, and that sounds serious. Amaya walked in last, arms folded, eyes narrowed. Y'all are hiding something. Caleb wiped his face fast, like dads think tears can be erased. Brielle forced a smile so gentle it almost broke. She opened her arms. Come here, my babies. The 3 girls ran in, one after the other, like a little storm of love. Brielle kissed their heads. Caleb wrapped his arms around all 4 of them, holding tight, holding tighter, holding like his life depended on it. Brielle spoke carefully. Mommy has to travel for a while, okay? Daddy is going to take very good care of you. Ayla's eyes widened. Travel where? Like airplane travel or hospital travel? Arya pointed at Caleb. If Daddy is in charge, can we eat cereal for dinner? Amaya tilted her head. How long is a while? Because grown-ups use that word when they mean forever. Brielle's smile trembled, but she stayed calm. Not forever, just a while, and Daddy is going to keep everything steady. Caleb nodded hard. Nothing changes. Pancake Fridays stay, bedtime songs stay, I stay. And right then, the camera of life zoomed in on one truth. This family was about to be tested, not by love, but by the people who hated that love. So stay till the end, because the villains were already watching. The following morning, the Hawthorne mansion looked the same on the outside. Bright sun, clean floors, quiet luxury. But inside that house, something had changed, something had shifted, something had cracked. Caleb Monroe stood in the hallway, watching Brielle tie Ayla's shoelaces. His eyes were heavy, his face was calm, but his heart was screaming. Brielle moved slowly, like every second mattered now, like she was counting time without saying it out loud. Arya popped up beside them with her backpack halfway open. Okay, quick question, she said, serious like a little reporter. Is Mommy traveling to a place with snacks? Because travel without snacks is suspicious. Ayla nodded fast. And do they have Wi-Fi? Because if there's no Wi-Fi, how will Mommy send me pictures? Amaya folded her arms again, her eyes sharp. I just want the truth. Grown-ups keep saying travel like it's a magical word. Brielle smiled gently, the kind of smile a mother uses when she wants to protect her kids from fear. Come sit down, my babies, all 3 of you. Right now. They sat at the kitchen table. The morning light bounced off the marble counters. The pancakes were already on the plate. Caleb stood behind Brielle like a wall, like a shield, like a promise. Brielle took a breath. Mommy has to go away for a while, to get help, to get stronger. Ayla raised her hand like she was in class. So, is it a doctor travel or a work travel? Brielle nodded. Doctor travel. Arya leaned in. Do the doctors know you're famous? Because they should. That might make them work faster. Caleb let out a small laugh by accident, the first laugh since last night. It was short, but it mattered. Amaya's voice came calm, but firm. How long is a while? Like 3 sleeps? Or like 100 sleeps? Brielle held her gaze. Longer than 3 sleeps. Not forever, but longer. The girls went quiet for 1 second. Then Ayla's brain started spinning again. Okay, if Mommy is traveling, who does our hair? Caleb stepped forward immediately. Me. Arya squinted at him. You? Caleb nodded. Yes, me. Arya pointed at his head. But you don't even have long hair. Caleb stared. That doesn't mean I can't learn. Amaya tilted her head. Prove it. Caleb grabbed a practice mannequin head from the closet, one Brielle bought for fun months ago, and placed it on the table like it was a serious challenge. After school, I'm starting lessons. Arya clapped once. All right, Daddy said lessons. We love a student. Brielle looked at Caleb like she wanted to cry and smile at the same time. But she didn't. Not in front of the girls. Not in front of the girls. Nothing changes, Caleb said, voice steady. Pancake Fridays stay. Bedtime songs stay. Homework time stays. I stay. Ayla tapped the table. Then we need a calendar. And just like that, the triplets jumped into action like tiny CEOs. They ran to the craft drawer. They pulled out stickers, markers, glitter pens. They made a big poster and wrote in bold letters, Mommy Travel Calendar. Arya added a sticker of a suitcase. Ayla added stars. Amaya drew a little crown on top and said, Because Mommy is still Mommy. That night, Brielle planned one special thing, one perfect memory. Movie night in the living room, bright blankets, popcorn bowls, Caleb doing silly voices during the film until the girls screamed, Stop it, Daddy! And they laughed. They laughed hard. They laughed loud. Later, after the girls fell asleep, Brielle went into the bathroom alone. She locked the door. She leaned on the sink. And finally, she let her face fall. She opened her phone and recorded soft voice notes, one by one. Not long. Just enough. Hi, Ayla. Hi, Arya. Hi, Amaya. Her voice was gentle. Her words were love. And somewhere in the quiet of that mansion, the clock kept moving. So stay till the end, because this travel was only the beginning. 2 days after the travel calendar was taped to the fridge, Brielle sat alone in her home office with the curtains open and the sunlight bright. The house sounded normal, kids laughing in the distance, a cartoon playing too loud, Caleb moving around in the kitchen like a man on duty. But Brielle's mind wasn't in the present. Her mind went back to the time when her life looked perfect on paper and felt like a cage in real life, because long before Caleb, long before the triplets, long before love softened her days, Brielle Hawthorne was her parents' investment, and her parents did not play. Her mother, Patrice Hawthorne, was the kind of woman who always looked polished, always looked unbothered, and always spoke like she was giving orders, not opinions. Patrice didn't yell often. She didn't have to. Her silence was scary enough. Her father, Gideon Hawthorne, was a billionaire with a smile that fooled strangers and a temper that scared staff. Gideon didn't like being questioned. Gideon didn't like being disobeyed. Gideon liked control. 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 That was the Hawthorne house. Beautiful walls, cold air, and a family that smiled too much in public, but never felt warm in private. Back then, Brielle was 22. She attended charity events, fancy brunches, and business dinners like it was part of her job. She wore designer clothes and carried herself like a future CEO, because that was what Gideon wanted. One afternoon, Brielle sat in the back seat of her father's black SUV, staring out the window, when Patrice's voice cut through the quiet. Posture, Patrice said sharply. Sit up. Brielle straightened. Gideon glanced at his phone. Tonight you'll be meeting Landon Chase. Brielle blinked. Who? Gideon finally looked up. Don't embarrass me. Landon Chase is the son of Chase Holdings. Old money, clean image, perfect match. Brielle's chest tightened. Dad, I'm not... Patrice cut in immediately. You are not not. You are a hawthorn. Your feelings come after the family. Brielle swallowed. So, I'm just a business deal? Gideon's mouth twisted into a smile that wasn't kind. You're a legacy. That night at the Hawthorne mansion, Brielle walked into the dining room and saw Landon Chase, waiting with his perfect teeth and rehearsed manners. He was handsome in the way magazines approve of, but when he spoke, his words felt like a contract. I hear you're very disciplined, Landon said, smiling. That's rare. Brielle forced a polite nod. I hear you're very strategic. Landon chuckled like she had complimented him. We'd make a powerful couple. Brielle looked past him, at her parents watching like referees. Patrice gave her a tiny nod, like, be good. Gideon's eyes warned, like, don't ruin this. And right then, Brielle felt it. Not fear, not even anger. She felt trapped. Later, in her room, Brielle sat on her bed while her two closest friends, Zaria Knox and Melody Price, FaceTimed her at the same time because they already knew something was wrong. Zaria, bold and loud, said, Girl, why you sound like you swallowed a dictionary? Melody, sweet but observant, asked, Was it another future husband dinner? Brielle sighed. They want me to marry someone I don't even like. Zaria rolled her eyes hard. You're a grown woman, Brie, not a trophy. Melody leaned closer to the screen. What do you want? Brielle hesitated. Then she whispered the truth like it was dangerous. I want normal. I want someone who makes me laugh, someone who sees me. Zaria snapped her fingers. Then stop letting them write your life. Brielle stared at the ceiling because she wanted freedom. But in the Hawthorne house, freedom wasn't given. Freedom was taken. So stay till the end. Because the day Brielle finally chose her own love, her parents would turn into her biggest enemies. A week after that dinner with Landon Chase, Brielle did something she almost never did. She went out alone. No driver hovering. No security making strangers nervous. No mother calling every 5 minutes to check her location. Just Brielle, a baseball cap pulled low, simple sneakers, and one quiet mission. Groceries. It sounds small, it sounds normal. But for Brielle Hawthorne, normal felt like rebellion. The supermarket in Buckhead was bright and busy. Carts rolled, babies cried. Music played softly over the speakers. And Brielle liked it. She liked the noise. She liked being invisible. She pushed her cart down aisle 6, reaching for a box of cereal when her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Patrice. Where are you? Brielle sighed and ignored it. Then she turned the corner. And that's when life did what life loves to do. It collided. A man stepped backward while talking on his phone. He wasn't looking. He was focused on whatever conversation he was having. Brielle wasn't looking either. She was checking a shopping list. They crashed. The cart jerked. A jar of pasta sauce tipped. Brielle stumbled forward. He stumbled back. And in one ridiculous, dramatic second, they both went down, right there on the clean supermarket floor. Brielle landed partly on his chest. His phone slid away. The sauce jar rolled and didn't break, like the universe wanted this moment to continue. Brielle froze. He froze. Then he looked up at her like he couldn't believe what just happened. And then, like a man with no fear, no sense, and no respect for personal space, he kissed her. A quick kiss. A bold kiss. A kiss that screamed, I just met you, but I'm already doing the most. Brielle's eyes went wide. Her brain short-circuited. She pushed herself up fast and slapped him, lightly, not violent, but clear enough to say, Sir, are you okay? What is wrong with you? She snapped, breathing hard. The man sat up slowly, blinking like he also surprised himself. Wow, I deserve that. Brielle stood, fixing her cap. You think? He rubbed his jaw, then looked around at the few shoppers who had stopped to stare. An older woman near the produce whispered, "Lord have mercy," like she'd just witnessed a proposal. The man cleared his throat and grabbed his phone. "I'm sorry, I wasn't looking." Brielle pointed at him. "You weren't looking, you weren't watching where you were going, and then you thought a kiss was the solution?" He exhaled and gave a small, embarrassed smile. "When you say it like that, I sound insane." "You are insane," Brielle said, but her voice was losing its bite, because something was happening, something she didn't want to admit. He was funny, not trying to be funny, just naturally foolish in a way that felt human. He stood up fully and offered her his hand like a gentleman who had made the worst first impression in history. "Let me help you up. Well, you're up already. Let me help you. Emotionally." Brielle stared at him. "Emotionally?" He nodded, serious. "Because I just caused you trauma." Brielle tried not to smile. She failed. He noticed it immediately. "Oh, that's a smile." "It's not," she lied. "It is," he insisted. "I know a smile when I see one." Brielle crossed her arms. "Who are you?" He tapped his chest. "Caleb." She narrowed her eyes. "Just Caleb?" He shrugged. "Caleb Monroe, regular guy, not a serial kisser, I swear." Brielle let out a breath. "You kiss strangers in aisle 6, Caleb Monroe." Caleb held up both hands. I panicked. Brielle tilted her head. "That's your panic response." Caleb nodded like he couldn't deny it. "Apparently." Brielle looked away, trying to regain control, trying to put the hawthorn mask back on, but it was slipping. Caleb took a careful step closer. "Let me make it right." Brielle glanced at him. "How?" He swallowed, then said it anyway. "Give me your number." Brielle laughed once, short and shocked. "Absolutely not." Caleb didn't argue. He just stood there, calm. "Okay, then I'll give you mine." He pulled a pen from his pocket like he had been prepared for destiny. He grabbed a receipt from the floor and wrote his number fast. Then he held it out like it was a peace offering. Brielle stared at that paper. She should have walked away. Her parents would have demanded it. Her life plan would have required it. But something in her whispered, "This is the normal you prayed for." Brielle snatched the receipt. "This is ridiculous." Caleb smiled. "So, you'll call?" Brielle turned and started pushing her cart again. But she didn't throw the receipt away. She didn't crumple it. She didn't even hide it. She just said, over her shoulder, "Don't get proud." Caleb called after her, voice warm. "Too late." And Brielle Hawthorne, the billionaire daughter, the controlled princess, the legacy, walked out of that supermarket with a receipt in her hand and a dangerous little smile on her face. Stay till the end. Because that one impulsive kiss in aisle 6 was about to start a love story her parents would spend years trying to destroy. The next evening, Brielle tried to act like nothing happened. She sat at the Hawthorne dinner table. Crystal glasses, perfect plates, silence that felt expensive. Patrice talked about charity events like Brielle was a brand. Gideon talked about business like Brielle was a product. Brielle nodded at the right times. She smiled at the right times. But her mind wasn't there. Her mind was in aisle 6. Her mind was on that receipt. Her mind was on that name. Caleb. When Brielle finally got upstairs, she shut her bedroom door, leaned on it, and pulled the receipt from her pocket like it was contraband. She stared at the number, then she whispered to herself, "This is ridiculous." And still, her fingers typed, "Brielle. Why do you kiss strangers in supermarkets?" The reply came almost instantly. "Caleb, why do you slap strangers like you're a celebrity judge?" Brielle's lips twitched. "Brielle, that was not a slap. That was a warning." "Caleb." It was a slap with personality. Brielle shook her head and laughed quietly into her pillow, trying to smother the sound like laughter was illegal in that house. And that's how it started. Not with a date, not with approval, not with permission. It started with messages that made Brielle feel like herself. 2 days later, Brielle was in her room when she heard a soft tap on the window. Tap, tap. She froze. Then it came again. Tap, tap. Brielle pulled the curtain back. Outside, down on the lawn, Caleb stood near the garden path, looking up like he belonged there. He waved once, then tossed something into the air. A paper airplane. It glided up, hit the glass lightly, and slid down onto her windowsill. Brielle opened the window and grabbed it fast like the night itself might snitch. She unfolded it. Inside was a short note, written in messy handwriting. I don't know how to be smooth, but I know how to be real. Meet me outside if you're brave. Brielle stared at the words. Then she looked down again. Caleb was still there, waiting, hands in his pockets, like he had all the time in the world. Brielle whispered, "You're insane." She closed the window, turned off the light, and slipped out like a shadow. 5 minutes later, she was outside, wearing a hoodie and sneakers, her heart pounding like she was about to commit a crime. Caleb grinned when he saw her. "So you are brave." Brielle walked up and hissed, "If my parents find out, they'll bury you." Caleb nodded slowly. "Then we better stay alive." He didn't bring a car. He brought a bicycle. One bicycle. Old, simple, quiet. Brielle stared at it like it was an insult. "This is your big plan? A bicycle?" Caleb patted the seat. "Trust me." Brielle scoffed. "I don't trust men who kiss strangers." Caleb leaned closer and lowered his voice. "You texted me first." Brielle opened her mouth to argue, then she realized he was right. She climbed on behind him anyway, arms awkward around his waist, trying to act like she wasn't enjoying it. Caleb pedaled down the quiet street, away from the mansion, away from the cameras, away from the pressure, and for the first time in a long time. Brielle felt light. Caleb glanced back. "You smiling?" Brielle lied immediately. "No." Caleb laughed. "Your silence is loud." They rode to a small park where the lights were bright and the air smelled like summer. Caleb parked the bike and sat on a bench like it was their bench, like he had known her forever. Brielle sat beside him, looking around. "Why here?" Caleb shrugged. "Because nobody cares who you are here. You can just be Brielle." Brielle's throat tightened. Nobody ever said that to her. Then Caleb looked at her and said, simple and bold, "I like you." Brielle stared. "You don't even know me." Caleb nodded. "Then let me." Brielle's heart beat fast. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. She wanted both. Caleb lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away, then brushed his knuckles against her cheek, like he was asking permission without words. Brielle didn't move, so Caleb kissed her again. This time it wasn't impulsive. It was gentle. It was sure. Brielle pulled back first, eyes wide, voice trembling with surprise at herself. This is a bad idea." Caleb's face stayed calm. "Maybe, but it feels like a true idea." Brielle looked down, then said the part she never said out loud. "My parents already chose someone for me." Caleb's jaw tightened. "And what do you want?" Brielle swallowed. Her voice came out small. "I want this." And that's when Brielle started laughing for no reason at all the next day, at breakfast, in the hallway, during meetings, and everyone noticed. One staff member even whispered, "Miss Brielle been smiling like she got a secret." They were right, because Brielle did have a secret, and secrets like that don't stay hidden for long. 3 weeks after the first paper airplane hit Brielle's window, the Hawthorne mansion started to feel different. Not because the walls changed, not because the money disappeared, but because Brielle's laughter kept showing up where it didn't belong. She laughed at text messages. She smiled at nothing. She hummed while walking through the hallway like she didn't live under rules. And in the Hawthorne house, happiness was suspicious. Patrice Hawthorne noticed first. That afternoon, Patrice stood in the dressing room, watching Brielle try on a sleek black dress for a charity gala. Patrice's eyes were sharp, scanning details like a judge. "You've gained weight," Patrice said coldly. Brielle blinked. "I haven't." Patrice adjusted Brielle's necklace with a grip that was too tight. "Then why are you glowing like you've been doing something foolish?" Brielle stepped back, fixing her own necklace. "Maybe I'm just happy." Patrice's face hardened. "Happy is not a plan, Brielle." Then Gideon Hawthorne walked in, phone in hand, smile already loaded, his public smile, the one he used when he wanted obedience without yelling. "Brielle," Gideon said smoothly, "Landon Chase asked about you again." Brielle's stomach turned. "Dad, I told you." Gideon lifted a finger. "You don't tell me. I tell you. Landon is the future." Brielle looked straight at him. "Maybe he's not my future." The room went quiet. Patrice's eyebrows lifted slowly. Gideon's smile stayed in place, but his eyes changed. "Excuse me?" he asked softly. Brielle's voice stayed calm, but it was firm. "I'm not marrying Landon." Patrice laughed once, not amused. "Brielle, stop this. You're acting childish." Brielle clenched her hands. "Childish is controlling a grown woman's life." Gideon stepped closer, his voice still low. "So tell me, since you found your courage, where is it coming from?" Brielle didn't answer, but her silence answered. That same night, Gideon called Rayford Mills, the Hawthorne family's head of security, an older black man with a stiff posture and a face that never smiled. Rayford had protected the Hawthornes for years. He was loyal, paid well, and trained to notice everything. Gideon said one sentence: "Find out why my daughter is smiling." Rayford nodded. "Yes, sir." 2 days later, the mansion staff started acting different. The housekeeper suddenly appeared in hallways Brielle didn't use. The driver suddenly offered rides Brielle didn't ask for. Even the gardener lingered near the back gate like he was listening. Brielle noticed, and Caleb noticed too. On a quiet evening in the park, Brielle told Caleb, "They're watching me." Caleb's face tightened. "Who?" "My parents," Brielle said, voice low. "They don't know you exist, but they're close." Caleb stared at her. "Brielle, if they're rich, they're not going to play fair." Brielle nodded. "They never play fair." Caleb reached for her hand. "Then we need to be smart." Brielle squeezed his fingers. "I know." But the Hawthornes were already 3 steps ahead, because Rayford didn't need to catch Brielle and Caleb together in public. He only needed one small clue. One night, Brielle's phone buzzed while she was in the living room with her parents. She had left it on the couch for 1 second, one careless second. Patrice picked it up casually like she was doing nothing. Then she saw the name on the screen. Caleb Patrice didn't smile. She didn't gasp. She didn't scream. She simply stared, and the air turned cold. Brielle's blood ran hot. "Mom, give me my phone." Patrice held it higher, like she was holding evidence. "Who is Caleb?" Brielle stood frozen. Gideon's voice came quiet and dangerous. "Caleb who?" Brielle opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Patrice clicked the screen fast, scrolling like a woman who had searched contracts her whole life. She saw messages, she saw laughter, she saw affection, she saw freedom, and Patrice's lips curled in disgust. "This," Patrice said slowly, "is why you've been acting like you forgot who you are." Gideon stepped closer, towering over Brielle. "Tell me now," he said, "is this man one of the staff?" Brielle's eyes flashed. "No." Gideon's jaw clenched harder. "Is he rich?" Brielle swallowed. "No." Patrice let out a sharp breath, like she smelled something rotten. "Of course not." Gideon turned to Rayford without even looking away from Brielle. "Bring me everything on this Caleb." Rayford nodded once. Yes, sir. Brielle's voice shook, but she stood tall. You can't do this. Patrice smiled finally, but it wasn't warm, it was cruel. Oh, Brielle, she said softly, watch us. And just like that, the love Brielle tried to protect became a target, not because it was wrong, but because her parents couldn't stand that she chose it herself. The following morning, Brielle woke up to a house that felt too quiet. No cheerful good morning from staff, no casual movement in the hallway. Even the air felt controlled, like the mansion itself was holding its breath. Downstairs, Patrice sat at the breakfast table with her tea, calm like she hadn't just declared war on her own daughter. Gideon stood near the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low, clipped sentences. Brielle walked in and said, You're not going to ruin my life. Patrice didn't look up. You already tried to ruin it yourself. Brielle's voice sharpened. Because I like someone. Gideon ended his call and turned slowly. Because you chose someone beneath you. Brielle took a step forward. Caleb is not beneath me. Patrice finally looked up, eyes cold. Brielle, your father built an empire. We did not sacrifice everything just for you to throw yourself into the arms of a nobody. Brielle's hands trembled, but she kept her voice steady. He's not a nobody, he's a person. Gideon's smile was thin. People like him know what they're doing. They see your last name, and they see $signs. Brielle snapped, You don't even know him! Patrice leaned back. We will. And just like that, Brielle understood something painful. Her parents weren't going to argue about love. They were going to punish it. Across town, in a small apartment with peeling paint and clean floors, Marsha Monroe stood in front of her mirror, tying her headscarf. Marsha was Caleb's mother, a black American woman who had spent her life working hard with little complaint. She wasn't rich, she wasn't connected, but she carried dignity like it was jewelry. For years, Marsha cleaned at the Hawthorne mansion. She kept her head down. She did her job. She made sure her son stayed respectful. That morning, when Marsha arrived at work, the mansion's side entrance was already open, but the atmosphere was wrong. The staff avoided eye contact. The assistant manager whispered, Marsha, they want you upstairs. Marsha's stomach tightened. Who is they? The assistant manager swallowed. Mr. and Mrs. Hawthorne. Upstairs, Patrice waited in the sitting room like a queen in her throne. Gideon stood beside her like a judge who had already decided the sentence. Marsha paused at the doorway. Good morning, ma'am, sir. Patrice gestured toward the chair in front of her. Sit. Marsha sat slowly, hands folded. Patrice smiled politely. You have a son, don't you? Marsha blinked. Yes, ma'am. Caleb. Gideon's eyes narrowed. Tell your son to stop contacting our daughter. Marsha's breath caught. Excuse me? Patrice's voice stayed smooth. We don't want drama. We don't want scandal. We want this ended. Today. Marsha swallowed hard. Ma'am, I didn't know. Gideon cut in. You know now. Marsha tried to stand tall. Sir, my son is a grown man. I can't. Patrice leaned forward, voice quiet but deadly. You can, or you will lose your job. Marsha's face tightened. I've worked here for years. Gideon's jaw clenched. Then you should understand loyalty. Marsha's hands shook slightly. Please, don't punish me for something my son. Patrice raised a hand. This is not punishment. This is consequence. Marsha left that room with her head high, but her heart was racing, because she knew the Hawthorns. She had seen how they treated people they considered less, and she knew this wasn't about love. It was about control. That same day, Caleb's father, Leon Monroe, was called into Gideon's private office. Leon was a quiet man with tired eyes, the kind who drove for wealthy people and stayed invisible by design. He had been Gideon's personal driver for years. He knew Gideon's moods. He knew Gideon's threats. Gideon didn't offer Leon a seat. He simply said, "Your son is becoming a problem." Leon's voice was respectful. "Sir, I can talk to Caleb." Gideon's eyes were hard. "You will do more than talk." Leon swallowed. "What do you mean?" Gideon leaned forward. "You will make him leave my daughter. If you fail, you will lose everything." Leon's hands clenched at his sides. "Sir, Caleb loves her." Gideon laughed once. "Love doesn't feed families. Jobs do." That evening, Caleb got a call from his mother. Her voice was trying to sound normal, but he heard the fear underneath. "Baby," Marcia said softly, "we need to talk." Caleb's smile faded. "What's wrong?" Marcia hesitated. "Your relationship. With that girl. It's causing trouble." Caleb's chest tightened. "Mum, what did they do?" Marcia's voice cracked. "They warned me. They warned your daddy too." Caleb went quiet. Then he whispered, "So they found out." Marcia breathed out. "Caleb, please, I'm scared." Caleb closed his eyes. His mind flashed to Brielle, her laughter, her courage, her hope, and then it flashed to his parents, two hard-working people who had already given everything. Caleb's voice came low. "All right." Marcia's breath caught. "All right what?" Caleb swallowed the pain like a man swallowing glass. "I'll end it." And in that moment, love didn't feel romantic. Love felt like sacrifice, and Brielle didn't even know what was coming. That same night, Brielle noticed Caleb's energy change before he even said a word. He didn't tease her the way he usually did. He didn't send his usual silly voice note. He didn't ask what sticker the triplets would pick for the travel calendar if they saw it. He just showed up at the park and sat down like his bones were heavier than normal. Brielle watched him closely. "Caleb, what happened?" Caleb stared at the ground. "My parents got threatened." Brielle's face tightened. "By who?" Caleb didn't have to say it. His silence said everything. Brielle's voice rose. "Your mom works in my house. Your dad drives for my father. They went after them, didn't they?" Caleb's jaw clenched. "They told my mom to control me. They told my dad to make me leave you." Brielle leaned forward. "And what did you say?" Caleb swallowed. "I told my mom I'd end it." Brielle's eyes flashed like fire. "You what?" Caleb's voice was low, ashamed and angry at the same time. "Brielle, they're not playing. They're using jobs like weapons." Brielle stood up fast. "So you're going to leave me because my parents are bullies?" Caleb stood too. "I'm trying to protect my family." Brielle's chest rose and fell. "And who protects me, Caleb? Who protects what we have?" Caleb looked at her then, really looked at her. "I don't want to leave you." Brielle's voice softened for 1 second. "Then don't." Caleb's shoulders dropped, like he was losing the fight inside himself. "I can't let them destroy my parents." Brielle stepped closer, eyes shining. "Then we'll fight them together. You don't run from people like that. You stand up. You stand up." Caleb hesitated. "Brielle." Brielle grabbed his hand. "Listen to me. My parents have always controlled everything, but they don't control my heart. They don't. They don't." Caleb stared at their joined hands, then nodded slowly. "Okay." But while Brielle was promising war, Gideon Hawthorne was already planning something worse. 2 days later, the Hawthorne mansion hosted a small private lunch. Nothing loud, nothing public, just rich people laughing softly over expensive plates, like their world had no consequences. Patrice floated through the room, smiling like a perfect hostess. Gideon shook hands, charming, calm, confident, and in the middle of that polished scene, a valuable piece of jewelry disappeared. It was a vintage gold bracelet, heavy, detailed, the kind of thing Patrice loved to show off because it screamed old money. Patrice's voice suddenly rang out, sharp but controlled. "Where is my bracelet?" Staff froze. One maid nervously said, "Ma'am, it was on the tray earlier." Patrice's eyes scanned the room like a predator. Then she turned her head slowly toward the doorway. "Leon!" she called. Leon Monroe stepped in, Caleb's father. He had been asked to bring Gideon's car keys. He stood there with his driver uniform neat, posture respectful, eyes tired but polite. "Yes, ma'am?" Patrice walked toward him, her heels clicking like a countdown. "You were near the master bedroom earlier." Leon blinked. "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Hawthorne asked me to drop off documents." Gideon's voice joined in, calm like a snake. "And you were alone." Leon's throat tightened. "Sir, I only dropped off the envelope. I didn't touch anything." Patrice lifted her chin. "Then you won't mind if we check your pockets." Leon's eyes widened. "Ma'am, what?" Rayford Mills, the head of security, stepped forward immediately, expression blank. Two other guards appeared behind him, like they were already waiting for this moment. Leon's voice rose, respectful but scared. "Sir, I've served you for years." Gideon's smile didn't move. "Then you should have nothing to hide." They searched Leon right there, in front of guests, in front of staff, and when Rayford reached into Leon's jacket pocket, his hand came out holding the bracelet. Leon froze, his whole body stiffened like he'd been struck. "That's not—" Leon started. Patrice gasped dramatically, one hand to her chest like a theater actress. "Oh my God!" Gideon's voice turned cold. "So you did steal it?" Leon shook his head rapidly. "No, sir, I swear on my life, I didn't—" Patrice snapped. "Don't you dare swear in my house while holding my bracelet." Leon's hands trembled. "Someone planted that! Someone planted that!" Gideon raised his voice just enough for the guests to hear. "Call the police." And the police came fast, too fast, like they were already on the way. Leon was handcuffed in the driveway while staff watched in silence. Patrice stood near the front door pretending to look hurt, but her eyes looked satisfied. In a different part of the city, Caleb got the call. He listened, his face drained, his voice turned raw. "They arrested my dad?" His mother's voice shook. "Baby, they're saying he stole from them." Caleb's hands clenched so hard his knuckles went pale. "That's a lie," Marcia whispered. "I know." Caleb's chest burned, his mind raced, his heart roared, and one thought hit him like a punch. Brielle was right. Her parents were capable of anything. Anything. And now they weren't just trying to break a relationship. They were trying to bury a family alive. 2 weeks after Leon was arrested, Caleb looked like a man who hadn't slept properly since the world turned cruel. He sat on the edge of his bed in his small apartment, elbows on his knees, staring at the wall like the wall might explain why powerful people enjoyed hurting regular families. Brielle stood in front of him, arms crossed, trying to keep her voice calm, but her eyes were burning. "Say it again," she demanded. Caleb's voice came low. "My dad is still locked up. My mom can't even breathe right, and your parents are smiling like they won." Brielle shook her head hard. "They framed him, Caleb. You know it. I know it." Caleb finally looked up at her. "And what can we do? They're billionaires. They can buy truth and sell lies." Brielle stepped closer. "Then we don't beg them. We don't fear them. We build our own life." Caleb let out a bitter laugh. "Build what life? I'm drowning." Brielle's voice got sharper. "Then let me pull you up." Caleb stood, pacing. "Brielle, your parents already destroyed my father. If we keep going, they'll destroy my mother too." Brielle lifted her chin. "And if you leave me, they still win. They still win, Caleb. They'll just move to the next target." Caleb stopped pacing. His jaw tightened. So what are you saying? Brielle said it clearly. We get married. Caleb blinked. Now? Yes, Brielle repeated. Now, not later. Not when your dad gets out. Not when my parents calm down. Because they won't calm down. Caleb's voice cracked. Brielle, I don't even have... Brielle cut in. You have me. You have love. You have truth. And you have a woman who is tired of being controlled. Caleb stared at her, the fight and fear battling in his face. If we do this, they'll never forgive you. Brielle's voice dropped. They never loved me the way they claimed to. They loved the version of me they could control. That night, Brielle made one phone call, not to her parents, not to her friends, to attorney Deshawn Pierce, a young, sharp black attorney recommended quietly by one of Brielle's old college mentors. Deshawn wasn't a celebrity lawyer, he wasn't flashy, but he was known for one thing: he didn't scare easily. When Deshawn met them the next morning, he listened without interrupting. Then he said, Your father's case is suspicious. The timing, the evidence, the speed of arrest. That doesn't smell like justice. That smells like power. Caleb's fists clenched. So what do we do? Deshawn looked at Brielle. First, protect yourselves legally. Second, keep records of every threat. Third, if you're planning marriage, understand this. Your marriage will be treated like an attack on that family's control. Brielle didn't flinch. Good. Caleb looked at her like she was both brave and terrifying. Brielle held his hand. I'm not leaving. I'm not. So they planned a small wedding. Quiet, simple. No big ballroom, no billionaire guest list, no cameras. Just a clean chapel, bright lights, and a few people who actually cared. Caleb's mother, Marcia, showed up with tired eyes and trembling hands. She hugged Brielle and whispered, I'm sorry this mess touched you. Brielle whispered back, It didn't touch me. It woke me up. Caleb's father couldn't be there. That absence sat in the room like a heavy chair nobody could move. Brielle's friends, Zaria and Melody, came too. They didn't ask for a speech. They didn't make it about drama. Zaria just squeezed Brielle's shoulders and said, Do it, and don't look back. Melody nodded softly. Love shouldn't need permission. The officiant was Pastor Lionel Grant, an older pastor with a steady voice and kind eyes. He had known Marcia from church for years. He looked at Caleb and Brielle and said, This world will test what is real, but real love doesn't run when tested. When Brielle walked down the aisle, she didn't wear a heavy crown. She wore a simple dress and a calm face. Her hands didn't shake. Caleb stood at the front, trying not to break apart. He whispered when she reached him, You sure? Brielle whispered back, I'm sure. Pastor Grant asked, Do you take... And before he could finish, the chapel doors opened. A man in a dark suit stepped inside, holding a phone like it was a weapon. He wasn't invited. He didn't smile. He walked straight up to Deshawn and whispered something. Deshawn's expression changed. Caleb noticed immediately. What is it? Deshawn leaned in, voice low. Your father's bond hearing got pushed back again. No reason given. Brielle's eyes narrowed. They're doing it on purpose. Caleb's throat tightened. They're punishing him because of me. Brielle's voice went firm. No. They're punishing him because they're evil. Pastor Grant cleared his throat gently, bringing the moment back. We will not let wickedness steal this day. Brielle lifted her chin. Caleb held her hands tighter. And right there, with a framed man sitting in a cell and 2 billionaires plotting in a mansion, Caleb and Brielle said their vows anyway. Not because it was easy, because it was necessary, because some loves don't survive unless people choose them out loud. 6 years later, the Monroe home didn't look like a billionaire mansion anymore. It looked like real life, bright morning light through regular curtains, shoes lined up by the door, a fridge full of sticky notes, laughter bouncing off the walls like music. And in the middle of that life, Brielle and Caleb's triplets, Isla, Aria, and Amaya, were now 10 years old and running the house like 3 tiny supervisors with opinions. Caleb moved through the kitchen with practiced speed. He flipped pancakes, packed lunches, and kept one ear open for chaos. He wore an apron that said, "Number 1 Dad." Aria bought it as a joke and never let him take it off. Brielle stood near the island in a crisp blouse, checking emails on her phone, her hair pulled back neat. She was still Brielle Hawthorne by blood, still wealthy by inheritance, still respected in business spaces. But the way she moved in this house was different. Here she wasn't a legacy. Here she was just Mom. Ayla burst into the kitchen first, holding her backpack like it was too heavy for her pride. "Daddy," she said, "I need you to answer something important." Caleb didn't look up. "If it's about aliens again, my answer is still no." Ayla frowned. "It's not aliens. It's my math test. If I get 100, do I get extra syrup on my pancakes?" Caleb slid a plate in front of her. "If you get 100, you get syrup, whipped cream, and the right to brag for 1 full day." Ayla nodded seriously, like they had signed a contract. Aria walked in next, hair half done, holding a brush like it was a microphone. "Attention," she announced. "Breaking news. I have decided to wear my hair in princess mode." Caleb glanced at her head. "Princess mode? You mean a bun?" Aria corrected him. "No, a royal bun. There's a difference." Amaya came in last, calm and watchful, as always. She scanned the kitchen, then looked at Caleb. "Daddy, you flipped the pancakes too early." Caleb blinked. "Too early?" Amaya nodded. "They're not golden enough. They're emotionally undercooked." Aria burst out laughing. "Emotionally undercooked is crazy." Caleb lifted his spatula like he was surrendering. "Okay, Miss Food Critic." Brielle shook her head, smiling. "Caleb, don't argue with her. She studies everything." Amaya pointed at Brielle. "Mom, don't distract him. He needs to focus. Our breakfast is the foundation of this household." Brielle laughed softly, then turned back to her emails. "Yes, ma'am." This was their rhythm. Brielle provided. She handled investments. She went to meetings. She made sure the future was secure. But Caleb ran the home. He did school runs. He did laundry. He did bedtime routines. He did the small things that built a childhood, and the triplets knew it. After breakfast, Caleb lined them up near the door like a coach. "Backpacks?" "Checked," Ayla said. "Lunches?" "Checked," Aria replied. "Homework?" Amaya lifted her folder. "Double-checked, and also, I corrected Daddy's spelling on the permission slip." Caleb sighed dramatically. "I knew I didn't like 3rd grade for a reason." The girls giggled and ran outside. Brielle stepped closer to Caleb, voice softer. "You're doing amazing." Caleb shrugged, trying to act casual. "I'm doing what needs to be done." Brielle reached for his hand. "I remember when you were terrified to braid hair." Caleb groaned. "Don't remind me." Brielle smiled. "Now you can do 3 heads in 15 minutes. Caleb leaned in, playful. "That's talent." But even in that warm moment, Brielle's phone buzzed. Her face changed when she saw the caller ID. Patrice Hawthorne. Caleb noticed immediately. "Your mom?" Brielle hesitated, then answered with a calm voice. "Hello, Mother." Patrice's voice came through icy and polite. "Brielle, I'll be in town this weekend. Your father and I want to see the girls." Brielle's jaw tightened. "You haven't asked to see them in years." Patrice replied smoothly. "We are their grandparents. We have rights." Caleb's eyes narrowed. Brielle's grip on the phone tightened. Patrice added, like she was discussing weather, "And bring Caleb, too. Your father has a few words." Brielle's stomach dropped because she knew that tone. That tone wasn't love. That tone was a warning. She ended the call slowly, then looked at Caleb. Caleb spoke first. "They're still watching us." Brielle nodded. They never stopped. And in that moment, the warm kitchen felt a little colder. Because the past wasn't finished. The Hawthorns were coming back. 2 months after Patrice's phone call, the Monroe house was still bright. The routines were still there. Pancakes, backpacks, homework checks, Caleb's off-key bedtime songs. But Brielle's body was changing. Quietly at first, then loudly. The tiredness stopped being just tired. The little cough stopped being just a cough. And the way Brielle sometimes gripped the kitchen counter like the room was spinning, that wasn't normal. One afternoon, Caleb found Brielle sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands the same way she did years ago when she held a secret. Caleb's voice went tight. "Brielle, don't tell me we're back here." Brielle didn't argue. She just said, "We need to go to the hospital." At the hospital, Dr. Elise Warren met them, a black woman in her 40s with a steady voice and kind eyes, the kind of doctor who doesn't perform hope, but still protects it. She studied Brielle's file. She looked at Brielle's face, then she looked at Caleb. "Mr. Monroe," Dr. Warren said carefully, "your wife needs intensive treatment, immediately." Caleb swallowed. "How bad?" Dr. Warren paused. "Bad enough that we don't waste time." Brielle didn't flinch. Caleb did. That night, Brielle sat the triplets down in the living room under bright lights, the same way she had done before. Caleb sat beside her, shoulders tense, hands folded like he was holding himself together by force. Ayla spoke first, because Ayla always spoke first. "Mum, is your doctor travel happening again?" Arya tried to joke, but her voice came out smaller than usual. "Because if it is, I'm writing a complaint letter. Politely." Amaya didn't joke. She just stared at Brielle. "Tell the truth." Brielle nodded. "The truth is, Mommy needs help from the doctors again. I'm going to be away more." Ayla blinked. "Like, sleeping at the hospital away?" Brielle replied gently. "Yes." Arya lifted her chin. "So Daddy is in charge again." Caleb answered quickly. "I'm in charge. I'm here." Amaya's eyes moved between them. "Are we still doing Pancake Fridays?" Caleb nodded hard. "Pancake Fridays stay." Ayla added, "And bedtime songs?" Caleb forced a smile. "Bedtime songs stay." Arya crossed her arms like a tiny manager. "And hair?" Caleb exhaled. "Hair stays. I'll do it, even if y'all roast me." Arya pointed at him. "We will roast you, with love." Brielle smiled, then squeezed their hands. "My babies, you did nothing wrong. This is not your fault. Nothing about this is your fault." The girls nodded like they understood, even if they didn't fully. Over the next weeks, Brielle's presence became smaller in the house. She tried to hide it. She tried to keep things normal. But children notice everything. Ayla started making get-well drawings and taping them on the fridge. Arya started speaking extra loudly, like volume could protect the room from fear. Amaya started watching Caleb more closely, like she was counting his breaths. Then one evening, Caleb got a call while he was stirring spaghetti. It was Nurse Tessa Lang, the home care nurse, assigned by Dr. Warren, a soft-spoken woman with a calm tone trained for hard conversations. "Mr. Monroe," Nurse Tessa said, "you should come in tonight." Caleb's stirring slowed. "Is she?" Nurse Tessa paused. "She wants you, and she wants peace." Caleb turned off the stove with shaking hands. He didn't tell the girls everything. He kept his voice steady. "We're going to see Mommy. Nia's coming over to stay with you." And just like that, Nia Vaughn arrived, Brielle's loyal best friend, the same woman who had taken them in years ago when life turned cruel. Nia walked in with calm energy and firm love. She crouched to the girl's level. All right, my three bosses. Daddy needs to go check on Mommy. We're going to keep the house running. Deal? Arya squinted. Can we order pizza? Nia smiled. We can discuss pizza after homework. Ayla whispered, Is Mommy okay? Nia didn't lie. She didn't scare them either. Mommy is very loved. That's what I know. At the hospital, Caleb walked into Brielle's room and felt his chest tighten. Brielle looked smaller, but her eyes were still Brielle's, strong, sharp, gentle. She reached for his hand. Caleb. He sat fast. I'm here. Brielle's voice was quiet. Promise me again. Caleb's throat closed. Don't do that. Brielle insisted softly. Promise me you will keep them steady. Caleb nodded, tears sitting in his eyes but not spilling like a storm. I promise. Brielle's lips moved into a faint smile. And, don't let my parents poison their hearts. Caleb's jaw clenched. I won't. Brielle took a slow breath. Good. Later that night, Brielle passed, not with chaos, with quiet, with Caleb holding her hand, with Nurse Tessa standing respectfully near the door, with love in the room. The next morning, Caleb came home and sat the triplets down. He didn't dramatize it. He didn't crush them with details. He spoke carefully. Mommy won't be coming back home, he said. Ayla's eyes filled, but she stayed still. So, she's in heaven? Caleb nodded. Yes. Arya swallowed hard. Does heaven have pancakes? Caleb let out a breath that sounded like a laugh and a sob at the same time. I think heaven has everything good. Amaya stared at the floor, then asked the question that showed she was still a child. Can we write her notes and still put them on the fridge? Caleb's voice went soft. Yes, we'll keep talking to her with love. The funeral came 3 days later, a bright chapel, quiet music, flowers everywhere. Caleb stood with his daughters in matching black outfits, holding their hands. Then Patrice and Gideon Hawthorne arrived. Patrice walked in like she owned the grief. Gideon walked in like he owned the room. Patrice looked at the triplets first, then looked at Caleb like he was dirt on expensive shoes. Gideon didn't whisper. He didn't wait. He stepped close and said, loud enough for people to hear, This is what happens when you let a poor man into your life. Caleb's eyes turned cold. Not here. Patrice's smile was thin. Oh, it's here. It's exactly here. And then, in front of mourners, in front of flowers, in front of Brielle's picture, smiling from the altar, Patrice pointed at Caleb and said the cruelest thing a mother could say at her own daughter's funeral. You didn't just marry her, you drained her. The room went silent. The triplets gripped Caleb's hands tighter, and Gideon leaned in, voice low and threatening. This is not finished, he said. We're taking what belongs to our bloodline. Caleb didn't shout. He didn't swing. He just stepped forward slightly, positioning himself between the Hawthorns and the girls like a wall, and in that moment, everyone understood. Brielle wasn't even in the ground yet, and her parents were already planning the next attack. The next morning after the funeral, the Monroe house felt quieter than it ever had. Not because the girls were screaming or crying. They weren't. They were moving slowly, talking softly, watching Caleb like little detectives who didn't want to make things harder. Ayla sat at the table, drawing a bright sun and writing, Hi, Mummy at the top. Arya tried to butter toast and said, Daddy, the toaster is acting disrespectful. Amaya stood near the fridge, staring at the mommy travel calendar that was still taped there, the stickers still sitting in the squares, like time had stopped on purpose. Caleb kept his voice steady. Breakfast first, school after. Then the doorbell rang. Caleb opened the door and found a courier holding an envelope. Caleb Monroe? The man asked. Caleb nodded. You've been served. The words hit like ice water. Caleb took the papers, shut the door, and stared down at the bold letters. Petition for custody and asset control. He didn't curse. He didn't throw it. He just whispered, "All ready?" Isla looked up. "Daddy, what's that?" Caleb forced calm into his voice. "Grown-up business, baby." Amaya stepped closer, eyes narrowed. "Is it Grandma Patrice?" Caleb didn't answer. He didn't need to. That same afternoon, Patrice and Gideon sat in their mansion with their attorney, Marvin Klein, a confident, older lawyer with slick hair and a voice that sounded like he had never lost an argument in his life. Marvin flipped through documents and said, "Your angle is simple. You claim the father is unstable and unfit. You request custody based on wealth and family legacy. Then you petition to freeze access to Brielle's assets until the children are in your care." Gideon's voice was smug. "Exactly. He's nothing without her." Patrice sipped tea. "And he will learn that quickly." Marvin added, "We'll also push the narrative that he married your daughter for money." Patrice's eyes gleamed. "That part won't be hard. People love that story." Back across town, Caleb sat at the small dining table with Nia Vaughn. Nia didn't look shocked. She looked ready. "Let me see it," Nia said. Caleb slid the papers toward her. "They want the girls. They want everything." Nia's jaw tightened. "They don't want the girls. They want control." Caleb whispered, "How do I fight billionaires?" Nia leaned forward. "You don't fight them with noise. You fight them with truth." That evening, Nia drove Caleb to meet attorney Deshawn Pierce again. Deshawn walked in with a worn briefcase and steady eyes, the kind of man who didn't get intimidated by fancy names. He read the petition carefully, then looked up at Caleb. "They're coming hard. They're going to paint you as a gold digger, a freeloader, an emotional mess." Caleb's face stayed blank. "And what do I do?" Deshawn said. "We gather proof, school records, teachers, neighbors, anyone who can testify that you are the primary caregiver." Caleb nodded slowly. "I did everything at home." Deshawn pointed his pen at him. "Then we make the court see it." The Hawthorns didn't stop there. The next day, Caleb got a call from the triplets' school. The counselor, Ms. Joanna Fields, spoke carefully. "Mr. Monroe, we've received some concerns." Caleb almost smiled. No dramatic voice. Amaya leaned forward. "What do we do?" Caleb said the truth plainly. "You tell the truth about your life, about your home, about who takes care of you." Isla nodded. "That's easy." Arya added, "We'll tell them Daddy is the pancake CEO." Amaya looked at Caleb closely. "And if they try to make us choose?" Caleb's voice went steady, even though his chest hurt. "You choose what feels safe, what feels right, what feels like home." Nia watched from the corner, arms folded, eyes shining with loyalty, because she knew what the Hawthorns were doing. They were trying to steal children like children were property. They were trying to rewrite a love story into a scam. They were trying to bury Caleb the same way they tried to bury Leon years ago. But this time, Caleb wasn't alone. This time, the whole community was starting to watch. And when people start watching, wickedness gets nervous. A week after the custody papers were served, the courthouse felt colder than it should have. Not because of the air conditioning, because of the energy, because of the power sitting on one side of the room, like it owned the building. Patrice Hawthorne arrived first, dressed in clean white, diamonds shining like she was attending a gala, not a custody battle. She walked with her chin high, face tight, eyes hard. She didn't look at Caleb like he was family. She looked at him like he was a mistake that needed to be erased. Gideon Hawthorne came in right behind her, tall, confident, wearing that smooth billionaire smile that fooled strangers. He greeted people with polite nods like he wasn't the same man who had threatened Caleb at a funeral. Then their attorney, Marvin Klein, stepped forward with a thick folder and a smug look. On Caleb's side, it was quieter. Caleb sat with attorney Deshawn Pierce, calm, focused, flipping through school records and letters from teachers and neighbors. Nia Vaughan sat a few rows back, steady and alert, ready to support but not make a scene. And between Caleb and the Hawthorns sat 3 little girls in matching dresses, feet swinging slightly above the floor because the bench was too high. Isla whispered, "This room smells like rules," Arya whispered back, "and expensive lies." Amaya said softly, "Just stay calm." The judge entered. Judge Simone Bradshaw, a black woman in her 50s with a firm face and eyes that missed nothing. She didn't look impressed by diamonds. She didn't look intimidated by money. She looked like she had seen 100 rich people try to buy what they didn't deserve. "Good morning," Judge Bradshaw said. "This court is now in session." Marvin stood first, quick and confident. "Your Honor, my clients are the maternal grandparents of these children. Their daughter, Brielle Hawthorne, tragically passed. These children are entitled to stability, resources, and a proper environment." Judge Bradshaw leaned back slightly. "And you believe their father cannot provide that?" Marvin nodded. "We believe the father is overwhelmed. We believe he lacks the means. We believe he is holding on to Hawthorne assets that should be protected for the children." Caleb's jaw tightened, but he stayed quiet. Judge Bradshaw looked down at her notes. "Mr. Monroe, do you have counsel?" Deshawn stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Deshawn Pierce on behalf of Mr. Caleb Monroe." Judge Bradshaw nodded. "Proceed." Marvin began presenting his story like a performance. He painted Caleb as a man who married into wealth. He implied Caleb depended on Brielle financially. He suggested the Hawthorns were the only ones capable of raising Hawthorne children. Patrice added her own poison when she spoke. "She was our only daughter," Patrice said, voice shaking just enough to sound believable. "We begged her not to marry beneath her. We begged, but she was stubborn, and now she's gone." Gideon leaned forward with fake sadness. "These girls belong with their blood. Mr. Monroe can visit, but raising them, that should be us." Judge Bradshaw's eyes narrowed. "So you want custody and control of assets?" Gideon said plainly, "Yes." Judge Bradshaw turned to Caleb. "Mr. Monroe, tell me about the children's daily life." Caleb stood slowly. His voice was steady, even though his hands wanted to shake. "I get them up," he said. "I cook breakfast, I pack lunches, I do homework, I do school runs, I do bedtime routines. Brielle provided financially, yes, but I ran the home, I raised them." Marvin smirked. "And yet you claim you can provide stability without Hawthorne support?" Deshawn cut in sharply. "Objection. Argumentative." Judge Bradshaw raised a hand. "Sustained. Mr. Klein, watch your tone." Marvin sat back, annoyed. Judge Bradshaw looked at the triplets. "Girls, I'm going to ask you a few questions. You can answer honestly. No one will punish you for telling the truth." Ayla raised her hand again, automatically. "Do we get extra credit for honesty?" A few people in the courtroom let out tiny laughs before catching themselves. Judge Bradshaw's mouth twitched. "No extra credit, just honesty." Ayla nodded seriously. "Okay." Judge Bradshaw asked, "Who wakes you up in the morning?" Ayla answered first. "Daddy." Judge Bradshaw asked, "Who makes your meals?" Arya leaned forward. "Daddy, and he thinks he's Chef Caleb, but he burns toast sometimes." Caleb closed his eyes like he was embarrassed. Judge Bradshaw asked, "Who helps with homework?" Amaya spoke calmly. "Daddy, Mommy used to check the final answers, but Daddy did the work with us." Judge Bradshaw nodded. "Who puts you to bed?" Arya said, "Daddy sings. He sings the wrong lyrics, but it works." Isla added quickly, "And Mommy used to laugh at him. She would say, 'Caleb, that's not the words.'" The courtroom went quiet for 1 second. "Not heavy," just human. Judge Bradshaw's voice softened. Do you feel safe with your father? All three answered together, quick and sure. Yes. Judge Bradshaw looked at them carefully. Do you want to live with your grandparents? Amaya paused, then said the truth. We don't really know them. Arya shrugged. They don't come to our school stuff. Isla added, Grandma Patrice looked at us like we were furniture at the funeral. Patrice's face tightened. Gideon shifted in his seat. Judge Bradshaw turned back to Patrice and Gideon, voice firm again. You want custody of children you've been absent from. Patrice snapped. We were grieving. Judge Bradshaw's eyes sharpened. You were grieving, but you had time to file custody papers the morning after the funeral. Silence. Then Judge Bradshaw looked at Caleb and said, clear and final, Mr. Monroe, the children will remain with you. Patrice's head jerked up. What? Gideon stood halfway, furious. Your Honor, Judge Bradshaw slammed her gavel once. Sit down. This court is not a marketplace. Custody is not a purchase. Patrice's voice rose, losing her fake softness. He's nothing. He's... Judge Bradshaw cut her off. Enough. You will address the court with respect, or you will be removed. Caleb exhaled slowly, like he had been holding his breath for weeks. The triplets gripped his hands and smiled small, like they had just passed the hardest test of their lives. And on the Hawthorne side of the room, Patrice and Gideon stared at Caleb like they had just lost the one thing they thought money could always buy. Control. The following morning after the court ruling, Caleb woke up with a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because the judge had spoken. Dread because he knew the Hawthorns didn't accept no. They only accepted control. He was still in the Hawthorne mansion, Brielle's home, the girl's home, the place filled with memories and little traces of her everywhere. A framed family photo in the hallway, a throw blanket Brielle loved on the couch, the mommy travel calendar still on the fridge, like hope frozen in time. Isla padded into the kitchen first, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, does this mean we can relax now? Caleb forced a calm smile. We can breathe a little. Arya yawned dramatically. Good, because courtrooms are not my vibe. Amaya opened the fridge, stared at the calendar, then looked at Caleb. They'll try something else. Caleb didn't lie. He just said, We'll handle it. Then the front doors opened. Heavy steps echoed through the foyer, like someone walking in to claim what they thought was theirs. Patrice Hawthorne entered with Gideon, and behind them were two security men and a sharply dressed woman holding a clipboard. Caleb stepped out of the kitchen immediately, positioning himself in front of the hallway that led to the girls. Patrice didn't greet him. She didn't ask how the children slept. She didn't even glance at the family photo on the wall. She went straight to business. Pack your things, Patrice said flatly. Caleb's jaw tightened. Excuse me? Gideon's voice was calm but cruel. This is our house. Caleb's eyes narrowed. It was Brielle's house, too. Patrice tilted her head. And Brielle is gone. The words were sharp on purpose, designed to cut. Isla, hearing voices, stepped into view with her backpack straps hanging loose. She froze when she saw Patrice and Gideon. Arya appeared behind her. Oh, it's the surprise grandparents. Amaya came last, standing slightly behind Caleb, watching like a little guard. Patrice's eyes flicked over them quickly, like she was counting items, not looking at children. The clipboard woman stepped forward. Mr. Monroe, I'm Tessa Caldwell, estate administrator assigned by the Hawthorne legal team. You are being formally notified that you and the children are to vacate this property today. Caleb's voice went controlled. A judge gave me custody. You can't remove us like we're trash. Tessa Caldwell lifted her clipboard. Custody is separate from property occupancy. This residence is under Hawthorne control pending asset proceedings. You may consult your attorney. Gideon smiled. Consult whoever you want, but you're leaving. Arya whispered to Ayla. Daddy said no dramatic voice in court. He didn't say anything about here. Ayla whispered back, Arya, don't start. Amaya looked up at Caleb. We have to go? Caleb swallowed, then nodded once. We're going to pack, calmly. Patrice's lips curled. Good. For once you're learning your place. Caleb's eyes turned cold. My place is with my daughters. Patrice snapped. Then take them and go. Caleb didn't argue further because he wasn't going to give them a scene to enjoy. He turned and spoke gently to the girls. Get your school uniforms, your favorite pajamas, and the things that matter. Not everything. Just what matters. Arya nodded. I'm bringing my toothbrush and my stuffed panda. The panda has seen too much. Ayla said, I'm bringing Mommy's scarf. Amaya said quietly, I'm bringing our photo. They packed quickly, no shouting, no breaking things, no drama. Just a father moving like a man who refused to be broken in front of enemies. When they came downstairs with bags, Patrice stood watching like she had won. Gideon stepped aside and said, There's a car outside. You can leave now. Caleb looked at him. We'll leave in our own way. And then Caleb pulled out his phone and called Nia Vaughn. Nia answered on the first ring. Caleb? Caleb's voice was tight. They're kicking us out. Nia's tone changed instantly. I'm on my way. 15 minutes later, Nia's SUV pulled into the driveway like rescue. Nia hopped out wearing jeans and a blazer, hair pulled back, eyes sharp. She walked up to the front door without fear and looked Patrice and Gideon straight in the face. So this is what you do, Nia said. You lose in court and... Gideon scoffed. Stay out of Hawthorne business. Nia didn't flinch. It became my business when you turned grief into a power play. Tessa Caldwell cleared her throat. Ma'am, please. Nia cut her off. I'm not here to argue paperwork. I'm here to make sure these girls have a safe place. She turned to the triplets and softened immediately. All right, my three bosses. You're riding with Auntie Nia. House rules at my place. Homework first, jokes second, snacks always. Arya raised her hand. Is pizza allowed? Nia smiled. Pizza is a discussion after homework. Ayla hugged her quickly. Amaya nodded once like she approved. Caleb loaded the bags into Nia's SUV, then looked back at the mansion one last time. It wasn't just a building, it was Brielle, and Patrice and Gideon stood in the doorway, watching like they had erased her. Caleb turned away, because he wasn't going to fight for walls, he was going to fight for truth. As they drove off, Nia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then frowned. Caleb noticed. What is it? Nia's voice dropped. Unknown number, but the message says... She read it slowly. I know what they did to Leon. I saw it, and I can prove it. Caleb's whole body went still, because the past, Leon's case, the frame-up, the pain, was coming back, not to hurt them again, but to expose the people who thought they were untouchable. 2 days after that mysterious message, Caleb sat at Nia's dining table with his phone in his hand, like it was a ticking clock. The triplets were in the living room doing homework. Arya kept whispering funny teacher voices. Ayla kept correcting her. Amaya kept shushing both of them like she was the principal. Nia stood by the window, watching the street like a protector. Caleb finally said, Call the number. Nia nodded once and pressed dial. A woman answered on the second ring. Her voice was older, steady, careful, like she had carried a secret for too long. Hello? Nia spoke first. This is Nia Vaughn. You texted me. The woman exhaled. My name is Odessa Lane. I worked in the Hawthorne mansion for 30 years. Caleb's eyes narrowed. You were inside that house? Odessa's voice shook slightly, but she didn't back down. Yes, I cleaned those rooms. I folded those clothes. I watched those people smile in public and do evil in private. Nia leaned forward. What do you know? Odessa paused. Then she said it clearly. Leon Monroe was framed. Caleb's chest tightened so hard it felt like his heart was being squeezed. I knew it, Odessa continued, words spilling like someone finally opening a locked door. That bracelet didn't disappear. Gideon ordered Rayford, security, to plant it. I saw Rayford take it from Patrice's jewelry box before they searched Leon. Caleb stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. You saw it with your own eyes? Odessa's voice turned firm. With my own eyes. I stayed quiet because I was scared, because people like them ruin lives. But when they kicked you and the babies out like you were nothing, I couldn't sleep anymore. Nia's jaw tightened. We need you to say this to the police. Odessa hesitated. If I do, they'll come for me. Caleb's voice went steady. They already came for my family. They won't get another one. Nia added, We'll protect you, and we'll do it the legal way. Odessa finally whispered, Okay, I'm ready. That same day, Attorney Deshawn Pierce met them at a small police precinct with Odessa. Deshawn walked with purpose like he had been waiting for this moment. The detective who received them was Detective Jalen Cross, a no-nonsense black detective with tired eyes, the kind of man who had seen too many wealthy people escape consequences. Detective Cross listened, then asked one question. Do you understand you're accusing billionaires of a felony conspiracy? Odessa nodded. I understand. Caleb placed a folder on the table. And I understand my father suffered for something he didn't do. Detective Cross leaned back. If we reopen this, we need more than words. Deshawn replied, We can get more. Odessa knows schedules, cameras, staff shifts, security logs, and there may be old footage stored on their private system. Detective Cross's eyes sharpened. If she's telling the truth, this case becomes bigger. Odessa looked down, then back up. It is bigger. The investigation moved fast, faster than the Hawthorns expected. Cross filed the necessary motions. Old staff were interviewed quietly. A warrant was requested for certain security records. And when Gideon and Patrice realized what was happening, they tried to panic control it like they always did. Patrice called Brielle's old contacts. Gideon called politicians. Gideon tried to make phone calls that usually made problems disappear. But this time, the problem didn't disappear. Because this time, there was a witness who wasn't scared anymore. Within weeks, Gideon and Patrice were arrested and charged. Their public smiles vanished overnight. Cameras caught them walking into the courthouse with tense faces and stiff shoulders. In court, Odessa testified. Security records backed key details. The pattern of intimidation, threats, and manipulation came to light piece by piece, and the story the Hawthorns had always controlled finally escaped their grip. The judge didn't care about their money. The judge cared about the truth. The verdict came down like a hammer. Gideon Hawthorne, guilty. Patrice Hawthorne, guilty. Sentenced to 30 years. When Caleb heard it, he didn't jump up. He didn't celebrate like it was a party. He just closed his eyes and exhaled like a man finally allowed to breathe. Nia whispered. Brielle would be proud. With the Hawthorns convicted, the legal mess around Brielle's properties shifted. Caleb's attorney handled the documents carefully, making sure everything that belonged to the children was protected. And then, exactly 2 years after Brielle's passing, Caleb remembered the letter. Brielle had sealed it in an envelope and written one instruction on the front. Open after 2 years. Read with Nia. That evening, Caleb sat at Nia's table again. The triplets were in the next room, playing a board game and arguing about rules like it was the Supreme Court. Caleb held the envelope like it was fragile. Nia whispered, "Are you ready?" Caleb swallowed. "No, but I have to be." He opened it. Brielle's handwriting greeted him like a warm voice. She thanked Caleb for loving her without conditions. She told him he had been the heart of their home. She told him not to let bitterness raise their daughters. Then she wrote about Nia. She called Nia the safest person I know, and she left a blessing that surprised them both. Gentle, not forceful, not dramatic. She wrote that if life ever brought Caleb and Nia closer, it should never come from guilt. It should come from care, from partnership, from protecting the girls with love. Caleb's eyes softened. Nia covered her mouth, breathing out slowly. From the living room, Arya shouted, "Auntie Nia! Daddy! Isla cheated!" Isla yelled back, "I did not cheat. I strategized." Amaya said calmly, "Both of you are loud." Caleb looked toward the girls and then back at the letter. Brielle wasn't in the room, but her love still was, and for the first time in a long time, the future didn't look like fear. It looked like peace. If there's one lesson this story refuses to hide, it's this. Money can buy noise, but it can't buy love. Brielle's parents had power, connections, and a last name that made people stand up straighter. But when the real test came, all that power couldn't replace what Caleb gave those girls every single day. Presence, consistency, and a safe home. Another lesson? Grief reveals character. Some people mourn with love. Others use loss like a weapon. And the scary part is, they can smile while doing it. So protect your peace, protect your family, and never let anyone convince you that kindness is weakness. Now let me say this as the narrator, my honest opinion. Caleb is my favorite kind of character. Not because he was perfect, but because he stayed steady. He didn't fight dirty. He didn't use the kids like a shield. He just showed up. Every morning, every night, every hard